The footage was already running when the directorate called the session to order, which told you everything about how this meeting had been scheduled, in a hurry, after hours, by someone who hadn't slept. I didn't stop the playback. I let the panel watch the last 11 minutes of Tessin Core's life as a confident man. You know the protocol. Every species we've surveyed in 400 years of contact carries some version of the same circuit. Confront an organism with an established claim marker, and its body answers before its mind does. Pupils widen, shoulders drop. The animal yields ground it hasn't consciously decided to give. We didn't invent the deference reflex. We just learned to manufacture the trigger. The claim spore, dispersed from a beacon the size of a fist, calibrated to every olfactory and dermal receptor profile we'd ever catalogued. 41 contacted species, 41 clean claims. It was, until 11 days ago, the most boring tool in the Concord's inventory. Tessin's team set down on Aldrich Reach to claim a derelict solar array, sparse colony world, population 11. One technician posted alone at the relay station to keep the panels tracking. Routine. The kind of claim you send a junior officer to run as practice. Before the footage, I should tell you what I believed walking into this chamber, because half this room believed it too. Humans were by reputation loud about ownership, territorial in the colloquial sense, prone to fences and contracts and long arguments over boundary lines. Field reports from the trade desks described them as stubborn negotiators, nothing more. Nobody on the claims desk thought the deference circuit itself was in question. We sent Tessin because the file read as easy. The recording opens on her. Mara Calloway, mid-30s, sleeves pushed up, recalibrating a collector array with a torque driver in one hand and a ration bar in the other. She doesn't look up when the shuttle lands. She doesn't look up when 3 Ashari step out in claim livery. Tessin reads the formal declaration, name, date, Concord registry number, and triggers the beacon. The spore disperses in a visible bloom, the way it's meant to. It settles on her skin, her hair, the open collar of her work shirt. Tessin's team watches her readouts on a wrist scanner tuned to the standard response curve. Nothing moves. I want to be precise about what nothing means because the directorate's first instinct, and I understand it, I had it too, was instrument failure. Cortisol analog, flat. Submission pathway activation, flat. The deference circuit didn't dip or stutter or arrive late. It simply wasn't there to read. You can watch Tessin tap the scanner twice. You can watch him glance at his second, a silent question. Recalibrate and redeploy, full dose this time. He doses her again. She sneezes. That's the only physiological event the spore produces in her at all, an ordinary irritant response, nothing in it that resembles surrender. Then she sets down the torque driver, looks at the 3 of them standing between her and the sun, and says, "This is on the recording. I've run the translation 4 times to be sure. You're blocking my panel. It's already losing 6%. She is not afraid. She is not defiant either, not in the way our doctrine prepares us for defiance, raised voice, weapon drawn, a challenge issued back. She is annoyed the way you'd be annoyed at a delivery cart parked in a doorway. Tessin tries the language of the claim a second time, louder, as though volume were the variable he'd missed. The beacon sits on a tripod between them, its dispersal array still venting a thin, visible haze. She steps past him, picks the beacon up by its base, an object every prior species has treated as something closer to sacred than mechanical, something you do not touch once it's planted, and relocates it 4 meters to a stack of unused conduit housing. "It's heating the panel face," she says, by way of explanation, and goes back to her recalibration. That's the whole encounter. No weapon drawn on either side. No raised voice that lasted longer than a sentence. Tessin's team stood on a frontier moon for 40 minutes while a woman recalibrated a solar array around them, then radioed back that the claim had his word, not taken. I was brought in 2 days later to run the full neuroendocrine workup because nobody believed the field readings. I drew baseline panels on 6 more humans at the relay's parent colony, None of them briefed on what had happened to Calloway. I dosed all 6 at standard concentration, under full medical observation, with consent forms I will admit felt faintly absurd to be drafting. Flat, every one of them. Not suppressed, absent. There is no submission pathway to suppress. The receptor architecture that carries the deference signal in 41 other species simply has no analog in human biochemistry. It isn't that humans resist the claim spore. Resistance implies a circuit fighting a circuit. There's only one circuit in the room, and it isn't theirs to activate. What I found instead, across all 7 subjects, was a narrow but consistent rise in a stress response marker our own physiology associates with sustained focus under irritation, not fear, not aggression, something closer to the chemistry of a technician who keeps getting interrupted mid-task. Their bodies didn't read the claim as a threat worth answering. They read it as friction, an obstacle in front of work that needed finishing. I'm aware of what this room wants from a briefing like this: a countermeasure, a recalibrated spore, a second-generation beacon. I don't have one to offer, and I want to be honest about why. The deference reflex isn't a lock we haven't picked. It's a door that was never built into the house. You cannot pick a door that isn't there. It gets worse than absence. While I was running the panels at the parent colony, a second team, independently without knowledge of Aldrich Reach, attempted a claim on a mining outpost 3 systems over, where a single human geologist had been cataloging ore samples for a contracted survey firm. They escalated dosage on their own initiative when the standard concentration produced nothing, the way Tessin had. Triple strength, sustained exposure, 40 minutes. The geologist's only recorded complaint, logged afterward with the outpost's own equipment, was a mild headache and a request that they stop standing in his light meter sightline. 2 independent incidents, 2 different claim teams, 2 humans who never spoke to each other, identical null result down to the decimal. This isn't an outlier in Calloway's chemistry. It's the baseline. Consider what the claim doctrine actually rests on. Not force. We've never needed force. That was the entire elegance of it. 190 worlds in the Concord's registry were claimed without a shot fired. Because every contacted species, down to the cellular level, already agreed to the outcome before the negotiation began. The beacon didn't conquer anyone. It only reminded a body of something it already knew how to do. Humans don't know how to do it, not won't, don't have the mechanism. Run the implication forward, and it doesn't stop at Aldrich Reach. There are colonies catalogued in this directorate's own registry, with human residents numbering in the dozens. Scattered through territory we've been quietly absorbing under standard protocol for 6 years. Every one of those claims is procedurally valid and biologically void, because the doctrine assumes a universal yes that one species in the catalogue has simply never been capable of giving. We didn't fail to claim Aldrich Reach. We failed to notice, for 6 years, that the claim was never load-bearing anywhere a human happened to be standing. There was a long silence in the chamber after I said that, longer than the footage itself. Director Vale asked, finally, whether the human had understood what she'd been offered the chance to yield to. I told her the truth. Calloway never knew there was a contest. She thought 3 strangers were blocking her sunlight, and she moved the obstruction, and she went back to work. She filed no report of her own. We found out what she'd done to 4 centuries of doctrine because Tessin Core's wrist scanner kept recording after he stopped believing it. One counselor, Oren Thale, claims law, 30 years on this bench, asked whether a higher concentration, sustained over days rather than minutes, might eventually produce fatigue in the response we were calling absence. I told him I'd considered it, and that fatigue presumes a circuit that tires. There is nothing here to wear down. He sat with that for a while before he withdrew the question rather than have it answered twice. The directorate did not vote to escalate. There was nothing left to escalate against. They voted instead on the only motion the data actually supported. Every world in the registry carrying confirmed human residency is to be struck from the active claims list and reclassified, pending further study. under a designation this Concord has never used before. Unclaimable. We have not manufactured a new beacon since.